WikiLeaks, the website which solicits and publishes secret and suppressed material from whistleblowers all around the world, was back in the news this week along with its mysterious and eccentric founder, Julian Assange. Someone, it's not clear who, dumped 250,000 unredacted and classified State Department and Pentagon documents which had been in WikiLeaks' possession onto the internet. When we first interviewed Assange last January, he was already under investigation by the Justice Department for publishing classified material and possible violations of the Espionage Act. He was also under house arrest in Britain, fighting extradition to Sweden in connection with 2 sexual assault cases, which he has called part of a smear campaign against him. None of that has changed, and the battle between the freedom to publish and government's need to keep secrets continues. In what is still his most extensive television interview, Assange talked to us about the idea behind WikiLeaks and the prospect of facing criminal charges in the United States.
The story will continue in a moment.
I mean, you've been called a lot of names. You've been characterized as a hero and as a villain, a martyr, terrorist.
I'm not yet a martyr.
Right.
Let's keep it that way.
For now, Julian Assange is holed up on this bucolic 600-acre English estate with an ankle bracelet, a 10 o'clock curfew, and a slow internet connection. He declined to talk to us about the allegations in Sweden on the advice of his attorney. He has not been charged and proclaims his innocence.
Well, I suppose if you have to be under house arrest, there could be worse places.
Well, it's a gilded cage. It's still a cage. But when you're forced to stay somewhere against your will, it does become something that you want to leave.
It's a radical departure from the lifestyle that the peripatetic internet muckraker is used to, bounding from city to city, country to country, and regularly changing his cell phones, hairstyles, and general appearance, he says, to elude surveillance and avoid being killed, kidnapped, or arrested. And there are reasons for his paranoia. In the last 4 years, WikiLeaks has published information that played some role in deciding the 2007 elections in Kenya and fueling the anger that recently brought down the government of Tunisia. It's divulged membership rolls of a neo-Nazi organization in Britain and secret documents from the Church of Scientology. And that was before Assange began publishing U.S. secrets, provoking what he calls threatening statements from people close to power.
What statements are you referring to?
The statements by the Vice President, Biden, saying, for instance, that I was a high-tech terrorist. Sarah Palin calling to our organization to be dealt with like the Taliban and be hunted down. There's calls either for my assassination or the assassination of my staff, or for us to be kidnapped and renditioned back to the United States to be executed.
Well, as you know, we have a First Amendment and people can say whatever they want, including politicians. I don't think that many people in the United States took seriously the idea that you were a terrorist.
I would like to believe that. On the other hand, that incitements to murder are a serious issue, and unfortunately there is a portion of the population that will believe in them and may carry them out.
If nothing else, WikiLeaks is the latest demonstration that a small group of people with a powerful idea can harness technology and affect large institutions. In WikiLeaks' case, it was the idea to aggregate state and corporate secrets by setting up an online electronic Dropbox where whistleblowers around the world could anonymously upload sensitive and suppressed information. The secrets are stored on servers around the world beyond the reach of governments or law enforcement, then released worldwide on the internet.
The US does not have the technology to take the site down.
Because?
Just the way our technology is constructed, the way the internet is constructed. It's quite hard to stop things reappearing. So we've had attacks on particular domain names, little pieces of infrastructure knocked out, but we now have some 2,000 fully independent in every way websites where we are publishing around the world.
WikiLeaks first caught the attention of most Americans a year ago, April, when it released this video. It shows a U.S. Apache helicopter crew in Iraq opening fire on a group of suspected insurgents who were standing on a street corner in Baghdad. Some of the men were armed, but two of them were journalists from Reuters.
Come on, fire! Keep shooting.
At least a dozen people were killed in the attack, some of them innocent civilians. Then last July, WikiLeaks released 76,000 classified field reports of U.S. operations in Afghanistan that provided a chaotic and bleak ground-level view of the war. In October, there were another 400,000 classified documents released from Iraq, showing that civilian casualties there were much higher than the Pentagon had claimed. And finally, in November, thousands of State Department cables that lifted the veil on highly sensitive backroom diplomacy. The documents revealed that Arab leaders were lobbying the U.S. to attack Iran, and that the State Department had been secretly collecting intelligence on leaders at the United Nations. It triggered outcries that Assange was a political actor trying to damage the U.S. government.
Are you a subversive?
I'm sure there are certain views amongst Hillary Clinton and her lot that we are subverting their authority. But you're right. We are subverting illegitimate authority. The question is whether the authority is legitimate or whether it is illegitimate.
Do you consider the U.S. State Department a legitimate authority?
It's legitimate insofar as its actions are legitimate. It has actions that are not legitimate.
And you've gone after the ones that you think are illegitimate?
We don't go after. That's a bit of a misconception. We don't go after a particular country. We don't go after a particular organization or group. We just stick to our promise of publishing material that is likely to have a significant impact.
To increase the impact of the U.S. documents, Assange decided to share them with some of the leading news organizations in the world, including the New York Times, a relationship that grew testy when Assange published the first set of war logs without removing the names of Afghans who were cooperating with U.S. forces.
The most persistent criticism from within the press has been that you have behaved recklessly from time to time. And the example that they cite is that you decided to release Afghan documents without redacting the names of people who had provided intelligence to the U.S. government.
There's no evidence or any credible allegation, or even any allegation from an official body, that we have caused any individual at any time to come to harm in the past 4 years.
The Pentagon said that they've gone through all of these documents and they found the names of 300 people.
Well, that's new public information to us. It's possible that there are 300 names in the publicly released Afghan material. We don't pretend that that process is absolutely perfect. We did hold back 1 in 5 documents for extra harm minimization review, and we also improved our process. So when Iraq came around, there was not even a single name in it.
I mean, there have been reports, people quoting Taliban leaders saying that they had the names of these people and that they were going to take retribution.
The Taliban is not a coherent outfit, but we don't say that it is absolutely impossible that anything we ever publish will ever result in harm. We cannot say that.
There's a perception on the part of some people who believe that your agenda right now is anti-American.
Not at all. In fact, our founding values are those of the US Revolution. They are those of people like Jefferson and Madison. And we have a number of Americans in our organization. If you're a whistleblower and you have material that is important, we will accept it, we will defend you, and we will publish it. You can't turn away material simply because it comes from the United States.
After the release of the State Department cables, Attorney General Eric Holder condemned WikiLeaks for putting national security at risk.
I think there's a real basis, there's a predicate for us to believe that crimes have been committed here. And
Holder announced that the Justice Department and the Pentagon were conducting a criminal investigation. They are reportedly looking at the Espionage Act of 1917 and other statutes to find a way to prosecute Assange and extradite him to the U.S.
It's completely outrageous.
Are you surprised?
I am surprised, actually.
But you are screwing with the forces of nature. You have made some of the most powerful people in the world your enemies. You had to expect that they might retaliate.
Oh, no, I fully expect that they retaliate.
You gathered, you stored all sorts of classified cables and documents and then released them to the world on the internet. They see that as a threat. And they want to...
Well, they see it as highly embarrassing. I think what it's really about is keeping the illusion of control. I'm not surprised about that. I am surprised at how the sort of flagrant disregard for US traditions. That is what I'm surprised about.
You're shocked. Someone in the Australian government said that, look, if you play outside the rules, you can't expect to be protected by the rules, and you played outside the rules.
Oh,
You've played outside the United States' rules.
No, we've actually played inside the rules. We didn't go out to get the material. We operated just like any US publisher operates. We didn't play outside the rules, we play inside the rules.
There's a special set of rules in the United States for disclosing classified information. There is.
There's a special,
long-standing.
There's a special set of rules for soldiers, for members of the State Department who are disclosing classified information. There's not a special set of rules for publishers who disclose classified information. There is the First Amendment. It covers the case. And there's been no precedent that I'm aware of in the past 50 years of prosecuting a publisher for espionage. It is just not done. Those are the rules. You do not do it.
No one has accused Assange of stealing secrets. The Apache video and the classified documents were allegedly provided to WikiLeaks by Private First Class Bradley Manning, a low-level intelligence analyst in Iraq who is accused of copying them from a classified government network that 500,000 people have access to. Manning is now in a military prison in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, facing charges that could put him away for life.
You've called him a prisoner of conscience, correct?
I've said that if the allegations against him are true, then he is the foremost prisoner of conscience in the United States. And there's no allegation it was done for money. There's no allegation it's done for any other reasons than a political reason. Now, I'm sorry if people in the United States don't want to believe that they are keeping a political prisoner. But in Bradley Manning's case, the allegations are that he engaged in an illegal activity for political motivations.
People in the United States think he's a traitor.
That's clearly not true.
Regardless of what happens to Private Manning, any prosecution of Assange will be fraught with problems because WikiLeaks wasn't alone in publishing the classified material. The New York Times also published some of it. If the government were to try and prosecute WikiLeaks and not the Times, it would likely need to prove that Assange was actively involved in a conspiracy to illegally obtain the documents.
Did you encourage anyone to leak this material to you, or have you done anything in connection with the U.S. cases in terms of encouraging an individual to provide you with material?
No, never.
There are people that believe that it has everything to do with the next threat, that if they don't come after you now, that what they have done is essentially endorsed a small, powerful organization with access to very powerful information, releasing it outside their control. And if they let you get away with it, then they are encouraging...
They will have to have freedom of the press.
Then they will encourage that it's encouragement to you or to some other organization.
And to every other publisher. Absolutely correct. It will be encouragement to every other publisher to publish fearlessly. That's what it will encourage.
To publish information much more dangerous than this information.
If we're talking about creating threats to small publishers to stop them publishing, the US has lost its way. It has abrogated its founding traditions. It has thrown the First Amendment in the bin because publishers must be free to publish.
When we come back, Julian Assange talks about his background and his political beliefs.